Hi everybody, it's Richard here again and welcome to another video. So I decided to have a go at this thread that's going around to show 5 artists that you've never owned any physical media from. Whose LP records, cassettes, CDs, 7-inch singles, 12-inch singles, flexi discs, reel to reel, whatever. I found this actually easier than I thought I would. The thing is, these artists have to be well known. You just can't pick out any obscure artists at all. So these are relatively well known, and we'll start off and we'll go from the 1950s up to, it's actually the 1980s. So the first one, I do like rock and roll a bit. I've got Buddy Holly, I've got Elvis Presley, I've got Roy Orbison, Chuck Berry, but I have never owned anything, not even a compilation tape by Little Richard. I do know some of the songs like Good Golly Miss Molly, Lucille and Tutti Frutti. I don't even think I would pick up a Greatest Hits if I saw it for a fiver, to be honest with you, because I'm not overly that keen. I know he was a pioneer of rock and roll and he was so flamboyant, and rock and roll probably wouldn't be the same without him, but it's still not for me. So that's one. Going into the 60s, and a band that's I think more famous for their members rather than what they actually recorded and produced, and I don't have anything by the Yardbirds. Now the Yardbirds were a vehicle for some of the greatest guitarists ever. I believe Jimmy Page was in them, Eric Clapton was in them, Jeff Beck was in them. And I only know a couple of Yardbird songs, like I know Shapes of Things and I Wish You Would, and I only know them because David Bowie did them on Pin-Ups. I do know the single For Your Love, which was written by Graham Goldman, but no, it never appealed to me, that song, at all. So I've never seen any Yardbirds out in the wild. If there was like a hits LP going relatively cheap, I would probably pick it up, but for the moment I have never had any Yardbirds in my collection. Okay, going into the 70s, and we're going into a little bit of rock here, and I only heard of this band in the mid 80s, and that is Aerosmith, and I only ever heard of them whenever they did that Walk This Way with Run DMC. In fact, that was the first time I heard of them. That's also the first time I ever heard of Run DMC as well, and I really liked it. Never bought it though. And the only other Aerosmith song I think I could tell you is I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, which is a Diane Warren song, and it's not bad, but it's a big power ballad. But apparently in the 70s, they were a good hard rock band, and your man Steve Tyler, he just looks as if he's copying Mick Jagger from The Off. But no, never had any Aerosmith, so that's my third choice. Okay, and my fourth choice is a band, I think they started in the 70s and they were quite successful in the 80s, and that is Rush. Now I know they are a little bit proggy, and my taste is not really prog, although I do have Genesis albums, of Emerson, Lake and Palmer albums, Mike Oldfield albums, and a few others. I have a couple of Yes albums as well, but never owned anything by Rush. My brother had a couple of albums, never played them. I may have heard them, casually, but not knowing it was Rush. And the only song I can tell you of Rush is Tom Sawyer. That's it, that's all I know. And I don't know any of the members either, apart from the guy, is it Neil Peart, that died. I never even heard of him whenever he died. I know it's a shame because apparently he's a very good drummer, but I know nothing about Rush. So Rush is my fourth choice. And my fifth, I'm going to pick between two here. They're 80s pop bands, and I will go with this one. That's Simply Red. Now Simply Red were massive in the 80s over here. I obviously do know quite a few of their songs, like Holding Back the Years and Money's Too Tight to Mention, Fairground, I think one's called For Your Babies, and yeah, I don't mind them. There's Blue Eyed Soul, it's quite pleasant, quite enjoy it, but I would never think of buying any of the records or even the singles, and never owned anything. I know they're massive. They actually do a really good version of The Air That I Breathe. I think that was in the 90s, or maybe it was a Mick Hucknall solo one, but it was really good, but I never bought it. So that's my fifth one, Simply Red. And I'll throw in a sixth one anyway, and it's Prefab Sprout. And The only song I know of theirs is that dreadful King of Rock and Roll thing. Hot dog, jumping frog, whatever the heck it is dreadful. Now a lot of people have said to me that don't even go by that, that is their worst single. They are really good, and I've seen a lot of Prefab Sprout on the VC, especially the Steve McQueen album, and I probably would buy it if it was cheap, and I mean very cheap, but that King of Rock and Roll has damaged me with Prefab Sprouts. So that's my 5+1 of artists I have never heard before. I really enjoyed doing this, so that's me for now, and I will have a video very soon. All the best now. Bye bye.